University, the voice of Reichman University.
The Baseline. Stories from the court with Jonathan Rears and Mayor Cohen.
We're back here today, the Baseline Podcast. Me and Mayor are in studio, and we got Geoff Grey on Zoom. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
We're good. We're happy to be here. Obviously, a little different environment than what we're used to, but just a little bit about our show. We just want to be a voice for all kinds of different basketball players, coaches, fans, anything. We're just passionate about basketball in general. We're here in Israel. We started this podcast a couple years ago just to kind of bring some attention to overseas basketball in general and what guys have to go through to come play here and how a lot of them are so successful and are able to do what they love at a high level, years after they ever thought they could. So that's kind of what we want to do. We want to be able to tell stories of different people and explain to them and have our audience be able to have access to their stories and their adventures and kind of see how they could do it themselves. So you're someone that has a true basketball journey from playing to playing overseas to coaching. So we're excited to have you on and kind of chop it up, go through different parts of your career. But most of all, just thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I've been following the posts you guys put online, and I see a lot of the players that I played against over my couple of years there a few years ago. So I definitely think that you guys are doing something good over there.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're trying. It's a small world here in the kind of overseas basketball, especially in Israel. So we'll have guys in all the time, and they know the guy that we had next, or they're having next, or had before. So it's a family here for sure. But I'm curious about your personal basketball journey, as I mentioned before. As a young kid, how did basketball kind of start for you as something that when did you know you wanted to make this such a vocal point in your life? And I'm curious about that. How it was in your family?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I didn't really have family members that played, but my brother brought this up a couple years ago. He actually remembered better than I did. He said that when I was 6 or 8, there was this court down the street, like a little cul-de-sac, so no cars would come in, with a hoop, and I'd just be out there for 8 hours a day, just hooping by myself, and just really loved it. Never came back to the house. Had to be called back for meals and stuff, and then it kind of just carried on as I got older. My dad, both my parents grew up in Boston, but my dad was a huge Celtics fan in the 80s with Larry Bird and those teams. So when I was younger, I obviously watched the Celtics teams with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. So we bonded over that. And, I lived in the good, Newton had a good community for, resources for basketball, good players. The Boston area wasn't as good as maybe some other cities that, around the U.S., but we definitely had some guys, and I just kind of wanted to see how far I could take it. And as I got older, I dealt with some knee problems, late growth spurts. But when I got to college, I was able to kind of get a clean bill of health and eventually accomplish my goals, which ultimately was to get out to play in Israel because, I was Jewish. And once I found out that you could get the passport pretty easily, that was the main goal of mine.
So growing up in Newton, you said that a lot of the basketball was just with yourself, playing out on that court 8 hours a day. I'm sure you played AAU and played at Newton South. That process of going to college, a little bit different. Going into D3, a lot of times you have to send out your own videos sometimes from coaches and stuff like that. So why don't you kind of tell us about your college recruitment process?
Yeah, so I played for this more local AAU team called Basketball to the Limit. We had a pretty good team. A couple guys I played with ended up one of them is actually overseas in Spain right now, Eric Demers, and another one was a Gatorade Player of the Year. So they were my close friends, and we had a good squad. I really enjoyed playing with them. But yeah, I played at Newton South. We weren't great, but we were solid enough to get a little bit of recognition towards the end of my career. But like I said, I was dealing with knee problems. I had this thing called osteochondritis dissecans that kind of flared up multiple times in my high school career. And the last time it did that was right before my senior year. The only way to really fix it was to get surgery, but I would have missed my senior year. So I was the doctor was you can just pay through, pain tolerance. And I was I don't want to miss my senior year. So I was probably a little bit under recruited, but that wasn't nothing too all different from kind of how the rest of my life had gone in terms of, I just always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I found coaches at Emerson that wanted me. Jim O'Brien was the guy that was originally recruiting me, but I was a little too young for him to kind of recruit me furthermore, and then he ended up retiring. So he was the one that coached at BC and Ohio State back in like the 90s and 2000s. But he coached this guy, Billy Curley, at BC, and he was his assistant. So Jim O'Brien retired, and Coach Curley took over, and him and Jack Barrett recruited me pretty hard. And Coach Curley played in the NBA for 7 years, so I knew there was a lot of knowledge there. Emerson was kind of in my backyard, and they were one of the few schools that were really recruiting me hard that I had a great, pretty good interest in. And so they had what I wanted to study. They had a lot of guys that work in basketball now, and it just felt like a no-brainer to me. There was also a kid from Newton North, Michael Thorpe, who was there in his last year, and he was a point guard too, and he was successful there. So it kind of just all made sense, and I ended up going to the right place.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Tell us a little bit about that, your jump within getting to university from the first year where you weren't quite playing as much, scoring as much, and then kind of an incredibly successful second year for you there. So what kind of what was the switch that allowed you to really play your game and play freely and be able to be such a force?
Yeah, so we had like 8 or 10 seniors my freshman year, and I was coming off knee surgery. So I was fully healthy, but I wasn't really like polished or had worked on my game enough. So I kind of just did what the team needed me to do that year. I was like the sixth man coming off the bench, ironically playing more defense than offense, probably rebounding, whatever they needed. And, then we had a good year. They all graduated, and we were basically rebuilding. And we had good resources at Emerson. I lived in the building that the gym was in. We had the shooting machine, the gun, which I loved, and that summer I just lived on that because I couldn't really shoot, and I wanted to, that's what opens up your game the most, in my opinion. And so I really just worked on my game a lot. My coaches saw that, and I think that they realized they're like, oh, we're rebuilding. This guy puts in the hours. This is our guy, and so I was able to have a lot of success, those next couple of years individually, but I was kind of feeling as like a leader, and like in terms of winning, we were missing the playoffs, and that was kind of bothering me. And so they ended up bringing a great recruiting class in my senior year. I was matured and kind of learned how to lead a team. We ended up having a great year and making the tournament for the first time ever. So it was awesome. Like I couldn't have ended my college career in a better way, honestly.
Right. You played great at Emerson senior year. You averaged 20 points and 9.5 rebounds a game. And then you also, at Emerson, you were a 2-time NEWMAC first team selection, 3-time academic all-conference honoree, Emerson College Male Student Athlete of the Year in 2018 and 2019. And like you just said, you led Emerson to its first NCAA Division III tournament appearance. Transitioning from there, when did you said that you always wanted to play in Israel. At what point did the process start, and how did you ultimately choose to go play at Hapoel Eilat?
Yeah, so I went on birthright. I think it was the summer going into my junior year, or sophomore or junior year. I was 19 or 20 at the time, and I went on with some friends from Newton. Obviously, like they sell you really well on birthright, so it was a great trip. We were there in June, so it was during the Premier League finals, and I was watching it. Like, we went out one night, and I was watching it. Amari Stoudemire was like at the free throw line, and he was one of my favorite players growing up. And I just saw that the league was legit. And I was like, okay, like around that time, I realized that I could get my passport and play out there, and I saw these guys that used to play in the league that are playing over there. I was like, this league is really solid. Like, I would like to try to do this. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. And then I talked to a few people that gave me a little bit of knowledge, but I really picked it up like when my senior season ended. And I got in touch with Matan Simantov through a guy I knew, this guy, Mike Kaufman, I knew from back home. He knew of Matan and, through my email. So I put together like a tape, emailed him my background, would love to play in Israel, and know that you have some pretty cool clients, like in terms of high up in the basketball world. I knew I wanted to work in basketball at the end of the day. And he called me pretty quick after that, and was very personable on the phone. He was aggressive and showed that he wanted to work together, and that was good enough for me. So I signed with him. He's with Two Talent Sports, and he ended up, he had Denny, Omri Caspi, and he knew a lot of people in the basketball world. And I knew at the end of the day that's what I was going to, wanted as well, like whenever my career was over. And so I kind of let him handle all that summer, and he found me the opportunity in a lot, which was a great experience. It was a lot different than living in Boston, but it was a really good league, and it was you can't get that experience anywhere else. So it was great.
So not only is it very different than living in Boston, it's pretty different living in Tel Aviv too. You're kind of like way out there in the desert, and you're pretty far from most things. So I guess you'd been to Israel before, of course, but still, what's that adjustment like for you coming from Boston? All of a sudden, you're in Eilat, you're in the desert, and kind of getting used to what it's like to be a professional overseas, and some of the things that you struggled with, as everyone does, especially with this, overseas game in general. So tell us a bit about your first season, some of the things that were maybe uncomfortable for you as a new import guy, or some of the things that you were able to really succeed and hit the ground running with.
Yeah, so it was tough. Like, I got off the plane, it was like 110 every day. I'm used to Boston winters and like stuff like that, and it just like you said, a lot was the same weather every day, super hot. New England, the weather's constantly changing, so that was a lot different. I was coming from Division III, being one of the go-to guys into the Israeli Basketball Premier League, where they got some serious hoopers here. So I had to fight for every minute I could get. So that was an adjustment. Just the familiarity and and being comfortable back home. I went to college in my hometown. My friends and family always around. Didn't know anyone in a lot. Tourist town, so people are coming in and out. I was able to make good relationships with the Americans on the team at the time, like Kevon Davenport and Jared Terrell, who's also from Boston. And so those guys were great guys. The other Americans were great. John Jenkins at one point was on the team. Gilbert Brown, Nate Mason, a lot of guys that I was able to connect to. They played at a much higher level than me in college, but there was a lot of knowledge there, especially John. John had been through the NBA for a few years prior to that, and he worked on his game a lot, and I was kind of developing into a shooter then. And so he kind of took me under his wing and, showed me how he operates and, shared a lot of his knowledge with me, and we still talk a lot to this day. So those were some of the things that helped. But yeah, the adjustment to the playing scene was really difficult too. I was on the ball a lot more in college, but the ball pressure in that league was pretty elite. So I kind of transitioned to the two. I was shooting the ball well at the time, so I was spotting up a lot. Maybe run off screens, and so I kind of tried to transition to that to mold my game better. But yeah, the adjustment in general was tough. Like, it was 7 hours ahead, but 5,000 miles away, and the first time I ever moved away from home. So it was a bit of a jump, but it helped me in a lot of areas. Now, like, fast forward a couple of years when I moved to Auburn, people were like, "Oh, you've never lived down south before. This must be hard." I was like, "You guys don't understand what hard is. Like, this is easy compared to moving to Israel. Not that it's like it's a super tough country to live in. It's just a lot different than what I was used to." So.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a huge part, just necessarily getting used to the environment, as we see is like a super common theme of struggle for athletes. And some of them, English could be the primary language, so guys say that'll be so easy. But even so, if you know the language or you've been to the country before, doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy adjustment period. And you also, you didn't just stay for 1 year and you left. You're transitioning to different teams within Israel. So tell us a little bit about that and your 2 seasons, 3 teams. You can correct me if I'm wrong, in the Israeli second division. So tell us kind of about what are some differences in that, and then kind of about like choosing what team you're going to play for next and those processes and some ups and downs involved in that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The next 2 years was 3 teams. So my first year in Eilat, COVID hit. Didn't get to finish the season. Went home. Decided anyway I wanted to go back, but I wanted to play more. So Matan found me a good opportunity in the second division with Coach Sharon and Kiryat Ata. I was living with Elijah Hirsch at the time. He had a lot of success the next couple of years. and I enjoyed it a lot. But it was like the COVID year, so we were starting and stopping, and there was just a lot going on. It was the year after COVID originally hit, and it was just kind of a mess. Unfortunately, at the time, my dad was also sick too back home, and so I decided that with everything going on that year, my dad's health, I came home around like I think it was November or Thanksgiving time, my second year. I ended up being home the rest of the year, kind of just training it here, but didn't go end up going back that year. And I decided that it still felt like I hadn't really gotten the full experience that I had wanted, so I wanted to do at least one more year. So I went back the following year to Ashkelon, and wasn't really playing well. Got cut like 2 months into the year, and then Migdal Emic had just moved up from the third league. They had a lot of injuries. It was good timing. They needed someone right away. I had just gotten cut, and I was ready to go. So I moved up there, and I started playing a lot there. Had a couple big games. Finished out the season there. Had a decent year, and decided, I finally got to finish the year, which is what I wanted. And there was still a lot of like COVID stuff going on, starting and stopping. But yeah, towards the end of that year, when I came home, I was like, all right, I got my 3 years in, I got my full season. I got to play in the top league. I got to get a lot of minutes in the second league. This is kind of everything I had wanted. And, the second league kind of fit my, I'd say, level at the time a lot better. I was able to rebound a lot and get out in transition and come off ball screens, playing like 20 minutes a game. And whereas the first league, I was kind of fighting for every minute I could get. And so then I kind of looked back and I was like, this is what I wanted to do. I did it. I'm 25 now. I kind of want to start my coaching career. So
this was something that you knew kind of during this process. You mentioned earlier that you had kind of known that being involved in the world of basketball is something you wanted to continue. So was this kind of continuous throughout the whole time, where you're thinking consciously, what you can pick up from certain coaches, knowing that at some other point coaching is something that you wanted to do? And tell us a bit about that. Is that something that was a very active decision for you, and you always knew that was something that you wanted to do, and how you kind of picked that up from coaches throughout the time and playing experience that you had that led you to become a coach in the future?
Yeah, definitely. Like that's why I think I got really lucky getting coached by Coach Curley at Emerson. Like he has so much knowledge from he scored 2,000 points at BC. He bounced around the league a lot. He has a ton of knowledge, but like anyone who has the opportunity to go overseas that wants to play coach one day, I'd recommend to do it, because the people you run into, like your cup, however long overseas, whether it's there, the off seasons, who you're training with, your teammates, you run into a lot of people that down the road, it's going to be beneficial for you. So like I said, with John, I still talk to John a lot, and he has guys in the NBA that he's close with, and Matan obviously, and one off season before I flew out there, like Matan had me come work out in Atlanta with Denny at the Skill Factory in Atlanta for pre-draft. Like I, met a lot of trainers that had a lot of knowledge there, other pros. Shelvin Mack was there, and, developed a relationship with him and guys like that. And now that I'm kind of I was working in college and now in the G League, you're crossing paths with a lot of those guys again. And not only just what they're able to teach you, but the relationships they're able to build over that time, usually come to fruition in the future if you go up into the coaching world. So it was definitely really worth it, and an experience that you can't really get anywhere else. So, and
then when you make that coaching transition, you end up going to Auburn, and you're a huge Jewish heritage guy. You did birthright. You went and you played 3 years in Israel, 4 different teams, bounced around Israel. And eventually you end up being an assistant to one of the biggest Jewish influences in basketball in the world. So why don't you talk about what it was like actually coaching alongside Bruce Pearl and what you picked up from him?
Yeah, no, that was just a huge bonus to an already like incredible experience. I knew Bruce was Jewish, but I didn't realize, how big of an advocate he was, and that whole thing kind of happened real quick. I was looking at other opportunities. Auburn was in Israel at the time, like late that summer. I was still at home. I had just gotten home in like late April from Israel. Was sending out emails, trying to get my foot in the door. But the guy that hosted me on my recruiting visit at Emerson, he works for the Trailblazers now. He was tight with one of the assistants at Auburn, Mike Burgomaster. because they worked together at Miami. And so they were coming back from Israel, and they happened to need a GA, but they were like preoccupied with their trip, obviously. And then here I was like at home still in August, like needing a job. And so Eli put me in touch with him. Turns out from back in the day, like Coach Curley, you know, Bruce went to BC as well. So he had his number. And so it kind of just like came together at the perfect time. Another one of references I used for Bruce was Matan himself, because they had met in Israel. Like the timing was really good. And so I kind of just heard about it. And then next week I was moving there, you know, grad program, 2 years, graduate assistant, you know, but on the staff, traveling with them. And I'd never been to Alabama before, but, you know, the environment there was incredible. They were just coming off the year they had with Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith. So they had 2 first-round draft picks. You know, they made the Final Four in 2019. The SEC was really coming on strong as like one of the premier conferences in college basketball. Now it is the top one, but at the time it was about to be. And so it was exactly what I was looking for. You know, I got to get my master's. You know, I got to do a lot of workouts with the players. I got to do a lot of scouts with Stephen Pearl, Bruce's son, who is now the associate head coach. And obviously you do a lot of things as a GA for the rest of the staff, and you pick up on a lot of things because you're listening. You're not talking a lot, you're listening a lot. And just seeing the way Bruce operated and the system he ran, and how hard he works, and the relationships he builds with his players, that's probably what makes him best. You know, he's always like on top of everything that's going on in the locker room, and you know, just in terms of what makes each guy tick. And he's an unbelievable motivator, and obviously he's great X's and O's, but how he is as a person and how he interacts with his players, I think, is what really makes him the best. And his staff works really hard. He hires the right people. And so, you know, that's part of the reason why I spent 2 years there. After 1 year, I was like, oh, I can go back. I kind of want to. Like, I believe in what they're doing here. And, you know, it was an incredible experience. So I was definitely lucky to be able to kind of fall into that.
And then moving on to Texas, you speak about this high praise for Bruce as he's a great coach, and you saw how he worked with relationships rather than, like you said, he's great with the X's and O's. But how did that convert to you now being an assistant, more involved with the players, I would assume, than you were at Auburn? How did that help you now in the G League with these players? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it helped a lot. Like I think one of the quotes Bruce says a lot is, they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's just like in testament to like how invested you are in their success. Because as a coach, your number one job is to put your players in the best positions to succeed so that you succeed. And like the way he took care of his interactions with his players and proved to them that he cares about them, not just saying it, but showing it, they end up believing in him because of that. So like, you know, with the G League this past year, that might look different for me as someone still lower in the totem pole, but even just when I'm in workouts with these guys, and whether I'm guarding them or rebounding for them or passing to them, like just having enthusiasm and wanting their success as much as they do, whether it's in a workout or in a real live game, like little bits and pieces that you can provide them to help elevate their game in a workout or in a live practice, just showing that they care enough, or that you care enough for their success for them to actually believe in you. And like, you know, guys like Jared Lucas we had this year with the Legends, he was, you know, one of the best shooters in the G League, running off a lot of screens, but it was his first year in the G League coming from college. And there was sometimes, even though he's a really good, you know, scorer in general, not just a shooter, there were times where he wouldn't get the ball, you know, just because he's playing off the ball. And that was something I experienced overseas where, you know, if you're on the perimeter and you're just standing there, you might not always get it. You gotta move and get into passing angles and make the ball find you. And so those were little bits that I tried to, like, you know, give off to other guys that I saw like in similar positions as myself. Like Jared was a much better shooter than me, but it was something that I saw in my own career, and that ended up helping me was like, you got to really be active off the ball and make it find you, because sometimes it just won't, you know, no matter how good of a scorer you are. So those little bits and stuff that you can give them, or stuff to prepare for the next game, whether we're scouting like, yo, this kid's really, he's going one dribble left off ball screens to, and that's what he's looking for whenever they're on offense and stuff, like just little things like that you're going to go over the scout that you might want to reiterate in terms like leading up to the game. Those things, if you have the right kid, always help. So I just try to take anything I can from guys that I learned from, not just at Auburn but also with the legends.
So I have a question about kind of your coaching at on the G League level. We have a lot of athletes on here that have played in the G League and have a mixed experience in the G League. A lot of them really enjoyed it, but for a lot of them, they felt like their experiences were maybe different than what they could have been, because we have this kind of aspect of athletes needing to kind of show what they can do on an individual level, whereas maybe in Europe, your club's more about winning and winning a game at any cost. But when you're playing in the G League, for a lot of individuals, it feels like it's constantly a tryout. You need to be able to play well enough or show things to be able to be called up. So from a coaching perspective, how does that sometimes, is it, first of all, an issue in any way, kind of in terms of a game flow or coaching in general? And if it is, how do you kind of manage that line of keeping the locker room and motivating all the players to win games, yet also individual players need to be focused on, their own performances?
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's very hard. Like, this is a testament to our head coach, Jordan Sears. He was 27, 28 years old in his 2 years as the Legends head coach so far. And like, coaching the G League, such a challenge because of what you just described. And not only that, but just the bodies coming in and out the door every day. But so, like, obviously you have the two ways too. So they'll get sent down. You could be playing 35 minutes a game in the G League, scoring 20 or so. Two ways show up and you got to come off the bench and play 10 minutes. How are you going to react to that? That's the biggest part of the G League, is like staying level-headed and knowing your role at the time. You might be the go-to guy one night, you might be the fourth option the next night. But it's even harder in terms of what you're saying, like in Europe, like, very team-oriented, you need wins and everyone stands out. Obviously, everyone's trying to win games in the G League too, but it's a lot about development. And like I said, the two ways of the priority when they come down, they get all the shots, they get the ball in their hands. And, even Alex Caruso has that famous quote, is like, I think what he said the other day was like, you're not trying out to be the CFO. You're trying out to be someone that's like cleaning the bathrooms. So not a lot of guys, GMs, want to see guys score 30 to get called up. They have guys in the NBA for that. They want to see guys play defense, get steals, deflections, cut assists, like hockey assists, stuff like that, where you can fill a role and it can translate to the NBA. And it's a challenge because it's not easy to do that. And so that's why the G League's great, because you get those success stories, but it's also very challenging because it's really hard to do. But it was a wonderful opportunity for me, and just to kind of experience that and the challenges that come with it. So
that is amazing, and I've always really been curious about that, especially talking to athletes here. So I'm interested in what you have to say. We like to ask the players that come on for some advice for someone who's kind of going in their own shoes and maybe is younger and listening to our show and trying to get towards a successful career, whether it's overseas or in the U.S. But from your perspective, maybe you're speaking to a young individual who's interested in coaching, but they want to play first. What would you tell them as kind of this is what you should do, or maybe something that you wish you did earlier, or things that were successful for you to kind of allow you to be as effective and be successful on your level?
Yeah, no, I mean, it applies to this era even more so, because now everyone's getting potential fifth years and extra years they thought they might not have had. And a lot of sometimes kids reach out to me and ask, like, yeah, I want to get into coaching. I have this extra year, I'm not sure what to do. And I always said, like, play for as long as you can, that you're enjoying it and it makes sense for you to do. And that's what people told me when I was heading over to Israel, because I wasn't sure like when the right time to stop was. But there's actually a guy that works for the Mavs now, Max Hooper, that, me and him are pretty good relationship, and he was working in the NBA at the time I was playing overseas, and I talked to him about it, and he was like, dude, when you're done, you'll know. And like, I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I knew what it meant the third year I was in, and like the timing, you'll know. And so if you're like, to those kids, like, if you're thinking like, oh, should I use this year? Should I not? If you're thinking about it, you should use it, because you're going to end up regretting it. You could be coaching for the rest of your life. Like, you might only be playing for another year, whether that's one more year of college, or I have an opportunity to go playing overseas, whether it's you're not as fortunate as me with the passport and you go play in England or Ireland or one of those countries. Like, the more time you spend playing, It gives you more time to kind of build your network up before then. Think about, how the best way to operate it, what what you want to do, get a new experience. So you get to grow in different areas, live in cultures you haven't lived in. And like the longer you play, the better off you are because you just have more to speak on it, more credibility to your name. People probably respect you more. Like, not that coaching is all how good you were as a player. It's not. Some of it is, but you will have more credibility most likely. And honestly, like that was probably the icing on the cake for me with Bruce. Like he knew I was a Jewish kid from Boston. Bruce is also from Boston, but he knew I played in Israel for a few years. Like that sold him in and of itself. And so and now like playing overseas for a couple of years with guys in the leagues in Israel that played in the NBA for a little, that go out to Israel that I met, like John, like, it's kind of paying it forward now because I'm meeting people that he's close with and stuff. And the industry is very small. You might be 5,000 miles away, but there's people that are out there that you're gonna run into the next year without even realizing it. And so, you don't want to play to the point where like it ends up being a bad thing or too much stress and stuff. But as long as you can play and you feel like it's worth it and you're young, like definitely everyone should do that as long as possible, whatever opportunity they might have. So.
That's for sure. And you got that Israeli experience playing. Do you see yourself coaching out here at some point?
So actually, like, there's a guy that Ryan Pinot, and I'm sure I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he coached out in Israel. He coached in the NBA. Was at Alabama now as the head coach at Arkansas State. There's a lot of good coaching opportunities overseas because, like I said, it's a really good league. I don't know if we'll have to cross that bridge if we ever come to it for me. Obviously, I spent a decent chunk of time out there, and I do want to go back at some point. But right now, I'm enjoying coaching in the States and kind of working through high-level college basketball and the G League, hopefully the NBA next. But we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. There are good opportunities out there, though.
Have you been following the league since you left at all?
Yeah, so I got my guy Lior Berman from Auburn is actually playing in Ashkelon now, and I got a good friend JJ Kaplan on Kiryat Data. Yeah, he broke out again. I was really happy to see that. So I try to keep up with those guys as much as possible, and seeing them be better than I was out there.
Kiryat Ata's had a great year, and it's been very cool for us too. We had a bunch of their players in, so you can listen to some of this stuff. They were great guys, are the Kiryat Ata guys, and they turned it on towards the end of the season. Were able to play well. So as we're wrapping up here, we're gonna do 24 seconds as we do for all of our guests. We're gonna ask you some rapid fire questions about basketball or your life, really. So John, we'll bring it up and we'll have it ready here.
Clock.
You got the timer going on? No pressure. You can say skip. You can say skip. None of the questions are so pressing though. Okay. I'm ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Music artist before games.
Drake.
Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Favorite NBA player?
Paul Pierce.
Winter League playoffs or NBA playoffs?
NBA playoffs.
Hit a steal, make a three.
Make a three.
Dream teammate.
Kevin Garnett.
On the clock.
Kevin Garnett, Boston guy. Got to stick to it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dude,
well, thank you for coming on, man.
We appreciate you. Your story's super unique, and as we're going with this, we're meeting new guys in every story. That's what we do here, man. Every guy's got a new unique story, and we explores paths that we would love to hear about. So thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time, and best of luck with whatever goes next for you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It was good to be on the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man.